Ready? It's all good.
Well, I'm glad. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show.
Woohoo!
So before we get into it, this is hopefully going to be a really, really fun stream.
Oh yeah.
But before we get into it, did you want to let our viewers know, in case you seem a little distracted from time to time,
agitated,
or agitated, or whatever it may be, would you like to let people in on what is the deal with tonight?
Presume probably anybody who's here would have been here on Wednesday, because it's a thing.
Yes.
And earlier in the week, I tried out for a local production of Clue the musical.
Yeah.
And I got called back. Callbacks were last night, and they said they're going to post they're going to send out the cast list today, but it's not out yet. And I've been waiting. It's not out yet.
So you're waiting to find out if you got the part.
Yes.
And you haven't heard yet.
If I got a part.
And if you got a part, because technically you were called back for 2 parts, but didn't you tell me after didn't you tell me you feel like you have more of a shot at one than the other?
Mm-hmm. I feel like I have more of a shot for Miss Scarlet than for Miss Peacock. I think. Yeah. Better chance there.
So.
Although I'd be glad to have either one. They both seemed. I mean, they all seem about the same level of fun. It's really going to be more about the cast. Well, I mean, you can be nice. You can be not nice if you're a human, but I wish it said person.
Just be nice, or how about just be nice?
And also, I would prefer if it said kind rather than nice, but I like it so.
As Patrick Swayze says in one of the greatest films of all time, Roadhouse, be nice until it's time to not be nice.
I really hope they pick me.
And Dana, how do you know when it's time to not be nice?
They didn't pick me?
You won't. I'll tell you.
Whatever. Okay, Steve.
That was me speaking as Dalton, played by Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. That wasn't necessarily
for the city in Georgia.
I don't think so, because the movie takes place in Missouri.
Well, he could have moved.
And he's not from there. So, I mean, maybe he is. Maybe he's from Dalton, Georgia. Maybe they named the town after him because he was so awesome. They were like, it was called something else, and then he was born and he became this legendary bouncer, which is a thing you can be in the universe of Roadhouse. And they renamed the town for him. They said, from here on out, we will be named Dalton after our greatest citizen. I think that's probably how it went.
Do you?
So he will. I think yeah. That's right, Kane 20C. Not only never missing an opportunity, never failing to contrive an opportunity to bring up Roadhouse. So let us have a fun stream and distract you from your waiting to see if you've got the part.
Good luck with that.
Well, hopefully, let's see how it goes. So we're going to for the first portion of the show, it will be more or less a typical read-away stream where we're going to talk about something that we have read, and hopefully everybody watching has read it. And then, because this is a special episode of Read Away, after we're done discussing the story, we are going to do a watch along of the Twilight Zone episode that was adapted from the story. So if you have not already done so, take your Twilight Zone DVD or your Twilight Zone on Paramount Plus, like Dana and I are going to be doing, and cue it up so that it's paused at 0, and be mindful of, if you are watching it on Paramount Plus, there may be a preview for another show and then the little CBS logo before it. So let all of that play, and then make sure that you're paused at 0 on the actual episode. And that's where we'll all start to watch in a little while when we get through talking about the story. so we can all be synced up and ready. And there will be a time code on screen just in case you get out of whack. You can resynchronize with the time code. So anyway, now that that's all out of the way, Dana, this was actually your idea. And you had mentioned, we were talking about the Twilight Zone at some point months and months and months ago. I was telling you something about it, and I mentioned this episode, and you mentioned that you had read the story, which I had not until this week when I read it for this.
So it makes that a nice little crossover.
It's kind of like a So what I wanted to ask you to start with is, when did you first encounter this story, and what is it about the story? Because you've never seen the TV show, you've never seen the Twilight Zone episode. So what is it about the original Jerome Bixby short story that you love so much?
It's good. It's a good story. Duh. Okay. I know that it's been since I started teaching. I don't remember how I came across it. It may have been when I was looking, I may have just, sort of put out a call on probably Twitter saying, hey, recommendations for short stories that are often overlooked for our high school students.
Okay.
Or just, short stories that are accessible for high school students, something like that. And I don't think I've a bunch of anthologies, actually. Oh, I'm sorry if this is like giving anybody like vertigo. I'm trying to go past. Okay, please don't do that. Okay, you can kind of look past my water bottle there and the huge mess on the side of my desk.
We could have taken your word for it, but
so yeah, I have a bunch of anthologies. Hi, buddy. Whoop. And but I've never seen this one in there. A lot of the short stories, they sort of cycle through, like Ransom or Red Chief. That's in a lot of middle grade anthologies. O. Henry gets a lot of use. Roald Dahl's short stories, some of them used to get a lot more traction. The Landlady and Brainy. The one that I actually use in my unit is not the Landlady. It's the other one with Mary Maloney. Lamb to the Slaughter. There you go. I'm like a lamb to the slaughter. Lamb to the Slaughter. That one has been in a fair number of anthologies, but I haven't seen it recently. So it's interesting how some of that changes. But this one, I just saw it, and then when I read it, it's instantly a favorite. Instantly a favorite. And it's a really good example, I think, of tone and looking at how that's created. And then there's also a contrast between the sort of, what did I say? The place where everybody's above average. There's the town.
Lake Wobegon. Yeah.
Lake Wobegon. Yeah, it's got a sort of like Lake Wobegon, cursed Lake Wobegon.
Lake Wobegon in hell. Yeah.
No, but like not like all the way. You know what I mean? It's still got the vestiges of like, community spirit and togetherness, and a lot of that is due to the if we don't work together, terrible things will happen.
Yeah. And terrible things will happen
still do
anyway,
happen, but they have all
they
have all clearly learned and keep in mind one of my mantras, which is it could always be even worse.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, just think about what we see and what is alluded to, and that's the other thing.
Yeah.
The things that are alluded to but not said, like it just lets you fill in some of these terrible things that happen.
So this was a story. It was originally published in 1953, and it was written by Jerome Bixby, and it was originally published in a science fiction anthology that I have the title of it here. It was originally published in Star Science Fiction Stories #2 in 1953. And it was very well regarded pretty much immediately. Like I said, I have known it as the Twilight Zone episode, but the original short story is also extremely well thought of even to this day. It's considered one of the best science fiction stories of its time.
No,
And is
no, ever. Period. Let's go there.
well, yeah. Well, I mean, I know you say that, and I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of other people who feel that, but I'm just saying specifically from like its era, it's considered one of the great science fiction stories. And and of course, in 1961, during the third season of the Twilight Zone, it was adapted as an episode of the Twilight Zone, and that's where people like me know it from. But so this week reading it was the first time I had ever actually read the original story, and I thought it was fantastic. I loved it. It's probably my favorite thing of all the things we've read for Readaway so far. Like it's
Oh,
yeah,
yay!
yeah, I loved it. And
Yeah, take that, Westmore. Ha!
yeah, by the way, hopefully, fingers crossed, the next governor of the state of Maryland. I believe I mentioned that before, but yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that he win the Democratic primary. Fingers
Yep.
crossed that will he'll get elected.
Come on, Wes.
So,
but yes, go ahead.
I just looked, and so it made me think. I've recently read for the first time "I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream."
Yes, we were going to talk about that.
And so it definitely had some similarities, but I think it's just so much stronger. And Harlan Ellison originally published that story in '67, and I can't help thinking that he was influenced by this, but it's not as good. it's just not.
It's difficult to imagine. Well, here's the thing. Not like I said, not only was the actual original short story incredibly popular and incredibly celebrated, but its episode of the Twilight Zone is also regularly ranked as one of the best episodes of the Twilight Zone. So I have no doubt that it was influential on tons of sci-fi writers in the 50s and 60s and into the 70s as well, because it continually was reprinted, in anthologies and such for decades. So I mean, it's I'm sure that it was, and I don't know if Ellison would ever have admitted that it was an influence, but or maybe he would have. It's weird with Ellison. Sometimes he was like really cool and gracious, and other times he was the meanest, most cantankerous bastard you could ever imagine. So it really depends on. It would have depended on what day you asked him, but yeah. So the basic premise of It's a Good Life is that there is a town in Ohio called Peaksville.
Except it's not in Ohio.
Well, it was originally it was originally in Ohio. Now it is, as is described so wonderfully in the story. Now it is
nowhere,
someplace else. It is someplace else. Nobody living in the town has any idea where or what happened. They just know that at some point after the villain of the story was born,
antagonist
of the story was born, the rest of the world was no longer there, and there is just the little town of Peaksville, and then the nothingness. Yes, indeed. And that antagonist is a child named Anthony Fremont, and in the story he is actually younger than he is in the Twilight Zone. I think in the Twilight Zone, it looks like he's supposed to be about 6. I think Rod Serling might even establish that he's 6 in his opening narration. But
well, because I mean, seriously, I mean, it's hard. He's probably the actor probably isn't 6. The actor probably like 7 or 8, a small 7 or 8-year-old. But no,
in the story he's supposed to be about 3.
He's supposed to be about 3. I can kind of imagine trying to direct a 3-year-old.
Oh God.
I can kind of imagine it, but I am relatively certain that the actual experience of directing a 3-year-old goes beyond my capacity for imagination, and that should tell you something, folks. I'm like, I think maybe if I put more effort into it, but I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
I don't want to. No.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not so bad that I'd rather go to Pikesville, but I'd rather not.
But
Let's
close.
just say
Radical Bacon, no Wordle today. No
it
Wordle.
is not Wednesday.
Yeah, it is not Wednesday. Friday Wordle, that doesn't, there's no alliteration there. Why even bother? So yeah, and so the story proceeds along the same lines as the TV episode that we're going to watch in a little bit. It's there are a lot of similarities, which I was, you
have said I don't,
which I enjoyed because I really love the Twilight Zone episode. So it was nice to see that, the adaptation didn't really change much from the story. But yeah, little Anthony is 3 years old, and for reasons that are never explained, he is basically,
nobody knows,
because nobody knows, right? He's basically omnipotent. He can think things and make things happen. He can think and cause animals and presumably people as well to do things that he wants them to do. He can think himself to travel to different places, and he just is in wherever he wants to go. And when something displeases him, he can think it into the cornfield.
Or he can do pretty.
Or he can do other things too. He can do other things. He can do whatever he wants. But the cornfield is where most things that he doesn't like end up. So, and in the first scene of the story, we see one of the other townspeople, Bill Soames, arriving with a grocery delivery. And when we say groceries, there's no more grocery store. There's no more electricity. Like, it's basically just, produce and some stuff that people were able to find
have
lying
saved
around,
up,
have saved up. Yeah.
So yeah, they're rationing things. So like, he's limited by his understanding.
Anthony is, yes.
Yes, Anthony is limited by his understanding. Like, they talk about tobacco. They have to grow tobacco because Anthony can't just make it because he doesn't really know what it is. He doesn't understand that well enough.
That's right. That's why. Yeah. So yeah. So he's potentially omnipotent, but not.
Yeah. It's his awareness is he's still a child, and that's part of what it's exploring.
Yeah.
Is not so much the nature of childhood, but the nature of someone with this limited understanding having this sort of power. 255 AD, some of it I think is I think I having not seen it, some of the difference is in what the difference in the medium and what you can accomplish in text versus what you can accomplish on screen and how. Yeah. And so I'll be really interested to see, because Steve, when you read this and we talked about it a little bit, you said, you noticed some things that were similar and some things that were different, and how they went about it, and you were interested to see sort of what I thought of that. So I'm very curious to see if I noticed some of the same things that you did.
Yeah. Especially in what 255 AD is kind of hinting at with the first question there, that the original does a better job getting across that Anthony is just a kid and not evil. And I think that is something that that is different because of the nature of the media. In a TV show or a film, with regards to the characters, everything is an external shot, because you can't actually get into a person's mind and know what they're thinking. I mean, you can approximate it in movies with some techniques like voiceover and stuff like that, but that is very tricky to do properly, and you can overdo that very easily, and there's just that's not always very artful. But with prose, I mean, you can move from exterior to interior, with
it's an omniscient point of view.
Yeah. And so we get to see, we have scenes in the short story that are from Anthony's point of view, and we learn, because it's something that is also
they follow Anthony, but again, they're in that omniscient point of view, but it's observing Anthony completely.
They're with Anthony, not necessarily literally from his point.
He doesn't have anybody to talk to.
But yeah, one of the one of the things that Anthony does is, in addition to being able to think things and make them happen, is he can read people's minds. And he doesn't read everybody's mind all the time. It's just sometimes he's listening and he overhears things that people are thinking.
Or he notices, like if
Or he-
it draws his attention.
Yeah.
you know,
If
he
somebody
can make
thinks something especially emphatic or something, yeah.
Mhm. Or if he's physically around them, you
Right.
know, that their thoughts are going to be more almost intrusive to him.
Yeah. And in we also, in the story, we see him, it establishes that he can also hear the thoughts, or at least sense the moods and the instincts
Desires,
of animals. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so there's that scene with him in the glade, where it seems like that's the place he goes to be by himself, and it's kind of like his happy place,
Mhm.
where he plays with the animals, and he gives the animals things that they want. You know, like he senses what the animals want, and then he makes it happen. And he gets a lot of very genuine pleasure from this, and there's a kind of sweetness to it.
Mhm.
But you also see what the difference is between him and the animals and him and the people, because the animals are always grateful.
Well, but not only
And
that, but it's simpler.
it's very simple.
Like
Yeah.
they want this. I am thirsty. I want water. Water. Yay! There you go.
Yeah.
That's all there
Yeah.
is to it. They don't have the complicated layering of emotions that people do.
Yeah.
You know, there's
it's
no...
not so much like, I think, like 255 AD says, and like you were saying, a minute ago, it's not so much that Anthony wants to hurt anyone, although I think sometimes he does, but generally speaking, like, as just as a person, he's not looking for reasons to hurt people. But he's a child, with the mood swings you would expect a child to have. The only difference
Sorry.
is he's omnipotent, and he can act on his moods.
And he's also a child, and he's curious. Like the scene with the rat.
Yeah, which is the first scene. Yeah, that's what he's doing when Mr. Soames rides his bike up to deliver the food. He's playing with a rat, and forcing a rat to eat itself. Just, like setting ants on fire with a magnifying glass, just kid stuff. Forcing a rat to eat itself, like you do when you're a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, there's definitely a lack of compassion there. And I think the implication is it's because of a lack of consequence.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things that makes the situation so scary, is that even though you don't get the sense that Anthony is malevolent intentionally, he's a kid who is acting on his own instincts and, like you said, his own curiosity. And he has not, I mean, first of all, he's 3, so you expect a certain amount of that anyway, regardless of how good his parents are, but also he hasn't received the kind of guidance that you would hope a child his age would have received from his parents, because his parents and everybody else in the town feel like they can't,
right?
Because they're at his mercy.
The other thing is, he doesn't yet have the awareness and this is possibly one of the failings. So, for example, what he does when he snaps with his mind at Aunt Amy, and
Yes.
he shuts her down, essentially.
He wipes her brain, kind of, yeah.
And 255 AD, I'm going to disagree there, because in that first scene that we see, that rat is afraid. It is afraid, and it is in pain. It doesn't necessarily have that directed at Anthony, because it doesn't understand why it's doing this or why this is happening to it. But it's confused. It's afraid. I mean, there is psychological trauma going on there. And Anthony doesn't seem to notice, which isn't consistent. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't show that he's noticing what's going on in the rat's mind, which it indicates that he does do that later. Like, he notices these things, and yet he's not noticing it here, because because that's not the point of that scene. But it it raises the question of, is he ignoring that, or is it just not his focus? And so when it's not his focus, it's not what, like, he doesn't notice it if he's the thoughts, if he doesn't. And I think that seems to be consistent with, the adults are able to, like, blah 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 blah, two
Yeah,
times two is four, four times four is 16, da, da, da. They're able to sort of channel their thoughts. My mind is going to Ghost. Was it Henry VIII? But did they do that in Ghost? I am Henry VIII. You can't read my mind because.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So forcing yourself to think of something. It's a small world after all. It's a small world.
You think of something innocuous and
innocuous or annoying.
Well, yeah,
so
that's
like,
true. Yeah.
God,
yeah.
just I'm not going to listen to you.
Please stop.
So but like, he liked Aunt Amy, but there's no indication, because he's so young, there's no indication that he misses the person she used to be.
Right.
And so that would be a natural consequence that he could learn from, be like, oh, I hurt someone, and now I don't know how to fix that. So, and because there is reference to that, maybe when he got older and he understood that he would fix her if that was possible, but they just don't know. So yeah, the animals are simpler, but I don't think they're necessarily better than the humans. They're easier. And we do see he's developing some sort of quasi morality, because there's like a ferret or a cat or something that's going to eat one of the birds, and he's like, no, and he kills it and puts it into a grave.
Yeah,
because he doesn't want it to hurt the other animal.
Right, but he doesn't have a sense of, like,
circle of life kind of stuff.
He doesn't have he can't fully comprehend the meaning of what he did. It's just he's acting on emotion.
He's like, I want to stop you from hurting this other thing. So there is that sense of not hurt good, fulfilling needs good, and hurt bad. So it's just starting. So there's the potential for development here, but that's the sort of thing that takes some time.
Yeah. Well, there's actually, I was scrolling through the story because I wanted to share some examples of it before we get to actually watching the episode, because I mean the other thing about the story that I really appreciated is it is so well written. I mean the writing, the voice, like you mentioned the tone at the beginning.
Yeah.
It really does. Bixby does a really good job of telling us horrifying things in a very conversational, casual way.
It's very casual conversation. He watched all the birds and insects and furry creatures for a while.
Which only amplifies the horror of it.
Yeah. It takes what's natural and normal and just goes.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a paragraph I wanted to read. This is during a scene when Anthony's mom and Aunt Amy are in the kitchen and they're preparing dinner, because the setting of the story is tonight is television night, where Anthony makes TV for people to watch.
Hang on.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that scene of them watching television at the end is what really got Sterling's like, I want to do this, because I'm really looking forward to seeing that at the end.
I'm looking forward to your reaction to what I think you're referring to.
Oh, I hope it's as good as I'm envisioning.
But but anyway, so they're preparing the meal and they're shelling peas and preparing stuff, and
that's something that's not going to be on there. The lollop.
Yeah. You can't really
love that. There's no, but just, and that's again, that diction is just, it's brilliant. It's really good.
So they're sitting there talking, and I'll just read a little bit of this. So, William brought the groceries, Aunt Amy said. She sat down wearily in the straight-backed chair beside Mom and began fanning herself again. She wasn't really old, but ever since Anthony had snapped at her with his mind, something had been wrong with her body as well as her mind, and she was tired all the time. Oh, good, said Mom. Lollop went the fat peas in the pan. Everybody in Peaksville always said, oh, fine, or good, or say, that's swell, when almost everything happened or was mentioned, even unhappy things like accidents or even deaths. They'd always say good, because if they didn't try to cover up how they really felt, Anthony might overhear with his mind, and then nobody knew what might happen. Like the time Mrs. Kent's husband, Sam, had come walking back from the graveyard because Anthony liked Mrs. Kent and had heard her mourning. Now, what an amazing paragraph that is. He never tells you explicitly that Anthony raised this guy from the dead and some zombie of him came walking home. He leads you to draw that conclusion. He doesn't even mention, all he says is Mrs. Kent's husband came walking back from the graveyard. And they're like, oh, okay, maybe he was visiting the graveyard and he came back. Nope, because Anthony had heard her mourning. Oh, now we get it.
Click, click, click.
Yeah, and it is so good. It's so well written.
Also, Mrs. Kent doesn't come over for television night.
No. And can you blame her?
What do you mean, can you blame her? I'm guessing otherwise.
Oh, you think that like she's just not
there
here anymore? Like she's in the cornfield?
She's just not. Cornfield or not, I mean, this may be pre-cornfield. She's just not. Because I mean, he shows up, she's gonna be screaming.
Yeah.
And then of course at the end, I'll be interested to see what happens, because I just think, I mean, he's just very matter of fact.
Nice radical bacon. Of course, I had the same thought. What about their son, Clark? He was the first one that Anthony got rid of. He was like, nope.
No competition.
No competition.
Batman, Anthony said, and thought Van Hollis into something like nothing anyone would have believed possible. And then he thought the thing into a grave deep, deep in the cornfield. The glass and record thumped on the rug. Neither broke. I'm very curious. I'm so curious what's going to happen to Dan at the end, because you're going to have, there's a visual there.
I am curious as to what there is a visual, and please nobody spoil it for Dana in the chat. Nobody tell Dana what the visual is in the episode, but it is one of the more famous visuals from this episode.
Oh, well, yeah.
I am very curious to see what your reaction to it will be.
Yeah.
But
they all seem to have internalized that idea. Just remember, it could be worse. And you have no idea how much worse it could be.
And that's the thing in that passage I read. It's like, it's not, don't let Anthony hear what you're thinking because he'll do something terrible. It's, we don't know what he'll do. He's a 3-year-old kid. We have no way of predicting what will happen. And that in a way is even scarier than having some kind of certainty that he'll just do something evil. It's like, we don't know. We don't know what he'll do.
That's again what makes this that's part of what makes this a stronger story than Ellison's, because there is no malevolence. It's that uncertainty and an uncertainty to a literally horrifying degree. You've no idea.
Yeah.
All you can do is your best, and it's not going to be good enough, and it's constant. And that's what we see from Dan. That just like,
yes,
that just brokenness. Like, I just can't anymore. And I'm very sorry, but I just can't.
He reaches a point where it's just too much. And
he just breaks.
It's a combination of just the overall situation, the fact that it's his birthday, he's been drinking, he has a birthday present that he can't enjoy because everybody's afraid of what Anthony will do. And he just cracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess Steve.
Well, actually, 255 AD is referring to one of the things that I want to talk about after we watch the episode.
Okay, well, that kind of makes a nice segue. Should we go ahead and
shall we watch the episode? Okay, so
This is on
Everybody,
Paramount Plus,
yes.
in case anybody doesn't already know this. So yeah, it's available on Paramount Plus, and we're going to be staring at the screen for a while. And I think I've got it queued up.
Yes.
I have in another tab, I've got my email. I'm waiting for that to change.
I hope it changes, and I hope it's the news you want.
Me too.
I know.
We might get through our show and just not know, folks. Just not know. Sometimes that's how it is.
We can't control such things.
No,
so just like
we are not Anthony.
No, we are not. Just like we do on Wednesday for Deep Space Nine and Hilda, and perhaps soon North and South. By the way, so far the poll seems to indicate that people want us to watch it. So
I'm so excited.
So, but anyway, that'll be for later.
A few weeks now, yeah.
A few weeks. So as we do on Wednesday for our watch alongs, I'll count us down. 3, 2, 1, play. Everybody, yeah.
Did you change the thing?
Yes. So
now I'm here, even if I'm.
Exactly. People can see us both at all times. So no more obscene hand gestures, please.
At least not until the video's over and we
not until the video's over and I switch back and forth. Exactly.
And I can pick my nose all I want.
You can pick your nose as long as you're not talking or making noise. You can pick your nose all you want. Okay, so I'll do 3, 2, 1, play. We all hit play on play. Yes. And what?
Okay, I think it was acting like it was going to go just like full screen. It's like not ready for that. Okay.
Are you good? You're paused on 0?
Yes, I'm paused.
You ready to go?
0. I'm
all right. So all right. I will count us in. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, play.
It didn't play. Okay, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Okay, stop. Pause everybody. Pause everybody. Back to 0. Back to 0.
Okay, let me try. Oh. Go back.
Okay.
Rewind. Because I pressed it this time, and this time it did. It started with the
okay. And so it'll play for you.
Yeah, I don't know why it didn't the first time.
Okay, everybody pause. Back to 0.
I'm so sorry. It's my fault.
It's all Dana's fault.
It's totally my fault. And Paramount's.
Okay, and Paramount. Sure. Damn you, Paramount.
Oh no! You know what? Where did he go? It's this guy. It's right over here.
Okay. I think I know what she's going to get. Yep. I was right. I think I know what she's going to get. And I was right.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Now
we're going to try this again. We're going to try this again. Here we go, everybody. I'll count us in and we will start. Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, play. You good?
It's working.
Okay.
This is the first time I've seen this.
This is very exciting for me because you've never watched the Twilight Zone before.
Never watched the Twilight Zone.
One of my favorite shows ever.
Different kind of introduction. One out of focus. Not too long ago. He's got a dimple. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so that's a change too, the singing.
Right.
Oh, that his eyes are blue in this. Ah, nice little chirpy music.
Yeah.
Getting a little bit dissonant there. No, you don't talk to Anthony. Yeah, 255 AD. I always figured that they ran
Yeah.
out of stuff because that's a reference later. They talk about the, that they had this much brandy.
Yeah.
Don't. Okay, they have to talk to him.
Yeah.
It's good.
Kane 20C, Anthony's making television, obviously.
Yeah, 255 AD. I think they're doing that because they're limited by the medium.
Yeah.
Um, Why would you tell? Yeah, 255 AD. So I'm guessing that's a advertising break.
That's a commercial break, yeah. The awkward applause.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chief. I love her trying to give the wife the Iggy, like, hey, go get him.
This is really nice. Pat's doing, whoever's playing Pat is doing a great
Yeah.
job with the expression,
Yeah.
and also he's playing louder now.
Yeah.
And then when there was that break and you could hear the liquid off screen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting. Good job for the kid. Play some more music.
So we can stop there. I think there's a word for Mr. Serling afterwards, but we can stop there. So
I liked it.
I'm so glad.
I liked it. I do think the story is much better.
Okay.
There were some things that I wish it hadn't been dinosaurs. I mean,
really?
I can get it. Yeah. Oh yeah. That
was one of the changes I really liked, but all
really?
because they also changed his age. You
yes,
know, like they aged him up a little, so it makes sense to me that the 6-year-old kid wouldn't want to watch dinosaurs fighting. You know, but yeah, because in the original story, he just makes like shapes.
Yeah, he makes shapes because it's essentially pulled from. He's like, okay, so television, there's stuff moving and there's sound, and it just goes on there. And so, but he doesn't really. But the other thing is, television is something that he gives them. It's for them,
right?
And that's also it. So pros and cons, because that's not consistent. He's much more selfish in the episode, the Twilight Zone episode, whereas the story is about him trying to be nice to people, and they're just like, no.
Yeah, it's a little. I think the big difference between the short story and the Twilight Zone episode is, I think the Twilight Zone episode is focused more on the other people in the town and their predicament, and the short story has more time for Anthony himself.
Yeah.
Which makes it, I mean, it's the same situation basically.
Yeah.
But the Twilight Zone kind of strips it down, and so the situation is these people are trapped in a scenario where they are at the mercy of this capricious child with incredible powers. And that's like this, and that's the situation, and that's what the episode's about. And the other stuff that the short story deals with, is mostly left out for the sake of brevity and for the sake of making it a little more focused and a little more simplified. So it does lose. I mean, you're right. It does lose some things in the adaptation.
Well, and also, and it's also the because of the format, and also because of the time constraints. Some things are condensed and or more overt, and I love the subtlety of the short story. So like,
sure,
when Dan's like, you evil child. I liked when Dan's sacrificing himself here. And that's
he's trying to. He's trying to.
Trying to. Well, he does sacrifice himself. It just ends up being in vain. And it's, you know, the Jack in the Box with his
yes
was probably the only thing they could get past the censors. Not the only thing, but obviously if it had actually been his head on it, like his disembodied head.
Yeah.
But I don't think that would have worked.
Well, I mean, I
allowed to put that.
They could have just had a reaction shot of the people and just had people like staring at it in horror, and then have Anthony's dad say, "Wish it into the cornfield, son, please." But I don't think that would have come across as well, because I mean, it's in the story, we don't know what it is. You know, you read that part.
And we are flat out told that no one could have imagined something essentially so horrific.
So it's intentionally described to us in the story in terms that make it unimaginably horrible. Right?
Yes.
We're left completely to our imaginations, and it's like nobody there could even have imagined what this was. So I feel like for the sake of the TV show, it's better to make it a specific something.
Yeah.
Instead of just having a reaction shot of people, and then we're left to wonder, like, what could it have been? I think it's better to have it be a specific something. And
why?
You're naturally because I just feel like it has more impact. I mean, if your goal is to adapt the short story as faithfully as possible.
No, if your goal is to tell a good story,
then I would say do the reaction shot, because that's more in line with what the story goes, because the story doesn't tell us what it is. But in terms of the TV show, I think it's better to give us a specific image, especially since that's close to the end of the episode. Like, that's the last thing we see Anthony do, other than making it snow. But I mean, that's just kind of out the window. Like, the last time we see him use his powers on one of the other people, or, you know, on a specific thing, is when he does this thing to Dan. Mm-hmm. So I think it plays better if we see specifically what he does, especially since well, another reason is because it's a specific image, because it's not vague, because it's concrete.
So why does it work for it to be vague in the story and not work for it to be vague in the TV show?
Because TV is a visual medium, and the short story,
and the short story's not. Yeah. Okay, that's kind of what I was getting at. You know, because I said I don't know. I think I might have made a few more changes though.
Yeah. Well, before we get to that, there is one. I wanted to mention the change that we talked about when we talked about it this morning. And the
because I've totally forgotten.
And the 255 AD alluded to in the chat before we started watching. But if you notice in the TV show, it's always wished him to the cornfield or put him in the cornfield. Mm-hmm. In the short story, it is specifically Anthony wished him or it or whatever into a grave in the cornfield. Mm-hmm. So in the short story, it is explicit that wishing something into the cornfield means he is killing it. And you can sort of draw that conclusion in the TV show. Like, nobody clearly wants to go to the cornfield. It's like banishment, but it could mean, you know, being sent into non-existence. It could mean, you know, whatever it means, he's sending them away. But it's vague. It's a metaphor. It's wished to the cornfield, right? In the short story, it makes it very clear. Wishing, when he puts you in the cornfield, he's putting you in a grave. You're dead.
No.
So
yes. Yeah. There's a difference though, because wishing them into the cornfield does not kill them. They're already dead.
And that's where he puts them. Yeah.
Right. Because it's good when somebody's dead, you show respect for them by burying them. So it's a good thing to do.
It's a real good thing.
It's a real good thing. It's kind, it's respectful. It shows that you cared about them. It shows that you're a good person, Anthony. So
so other things you would change.
For that, for what happened to Dan in particular, I would, well, again, it goes back to that character. I don't like this characterization of Anthony as much. It loses a lot. It loses a lot of the nuance, and some of that again is
Sure.
because it's a half-hour TV show. But I wish we could have not had Anthony actually be a monster. Like we could, if it hadn't been sort of, handed to us that way. He is a monster, da da da. But allowed us to, grasp the horror of it, because the horror, I think, comes from that he's not a monster. He's just a kid, and it's a monstrous situation that has made him this monster. Instead, we're just flat out told. But I think it would be less monstrous for him to say, for Dan's face on there to be smiling, like really genuinely happily smiling.
That would have been creepy. Yeah.
Yes. And then Anthony says he was thinking bad thoughts. Now he'll never think bad thoughts again. Now he'll always be happy. And so it's clear. Yes. I really think that it loses, the menace comes from their reaction. So the other thing that I wish they would have included is the ambivalence that is having the parents feel ambivalence. This is their son. They want him to be a good person. They don't want this situation, but they have a responsibility there. They're afraid of him, but they're also afraid for him. They know everybody is, he's put everybody in this terrible situation, but at the same time, he's their son. I really wish we would have seen that they do care about him, that they do love him, and that there's that internal conflict there, and it's just not there at all. No, I think they could have gotten around that, because it's clear that you can't make Anthony do things, and that's another thing that I didn't like, that they made it Aunt Amy singing.
Yeah. I think they did that. I think they did that to introduce the idea that he doesn't like singing early in, so that makes a little more sense.
I think that still could have been done. I understand that the bit with Bill on the bike, I was looking forward to seeing that, because that would have been a great visual. Shoot.
Oh, boy, he makes him go really fast, like in the story. Yeah,
the bike is pedaling Bill, and but I figured that was cut for time.
Yeah.
But I think I would have made some other cuts. And it would have been easy, to just have a reference. Anthony doesn't like singing, or have somebody say that to Amy. Have her start singing. No, we can't do that. Remember, Anthony doesn't like singing. He just likes the music by itself. I think it should have been. Kane, do you think? Wait, you don't think what would make it past the censors?
I think 250. I was going to respond to what 255 AD just said, and I think that's what Kane is responding to: the idea that Anthony shouldn't be wearing clothes or be toilet trained. I think that would be way too distracting.
No, I was getting to that because my point was that he can be guided, he can't be controlled, and given that he has the ability to be like, oh, Anthony, you're a person, you're a big boy now. And notice, all of us, we all use the toilet and we all wear clothes, and you're a good person. You're like us. Aren't we all good people? We're all good people, and we love you so much, and we want you to be a good person too. And you want to be a good person too, don't you?
Yeah.
I think that's part of the guidance that they can provide.
And we see one of the things I like about the TV episode, as opposed to the story, although we get a little bit of this in the story, but in the TV episode, you get that scene between Anthony and his dad. Mm-hmm. And you see how, it's a really good scene. And you see how his dad is kind of trying to gently sort of guide him without pushing him too hard or upsetting him. But, and you can tell, and John Larch is the actor who plays, Anthony's dad in that, and he's a great actor, and he was in TV and movies for 50 years. He was the chief of police in the first Dirty Harry movies, where you might recognize, and he was in a couple other Twilight Zones too, but he gives such a good performance in this episode, and that scene specifically, because you can tell that he's still afraid of Anthony. He's still trying not to upset him, but he's also trying to be a father and trying to gently nudge this child in the right direction. But he also, but also knows that there's only so much he can do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I like that has that subtlety and that nuance that I really
yeah,
liked.
yeah. And
I
and you also said you really liked Pat at the piano. That was
yeah.
Casey Adams. That was Casey Adams playing that. He's another guy who did a bunch of like low budget movies and TV shows and stuff in the 50s and
That
60s.
was it was beautiful.
He's also really good. And Aunt Amy has one of my favorite moments in the episode where when Dan is going off and saying, won't somebody sneak up behind him and lay something heavy across his
Yeah, and
skull? She starts reaching for the fireplace poker,
mhm.
and then she pulls back. I love that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course Dan's one of his final, I think it might be his last words when he says, "Won't somebody take a lamp or a bottle or something and end this?" One of my favorite moments from the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I love it so much.
I think they missed the opportunity. I think it couldn't have been done in the story about the next day it snowed.
Yeah.
Because it's like the next day, but because they introduced that right there, nobody said, it's real nice that he did that for Aunt Amy. You see how much he likes Aunt Amy? He did that for Aunt Amy. Isn't it nice? Now it won't be so hot. That's real nice. That's just swell. It won't be so hot now.
Yeah. That would have been a good to specifically. Yeah, for sure. And also Cloris Leachman as Anthony's mom, and Alice Frost as Aunt Amy, who is so good.
Aunt Amy was good. I would have liked a little bit more. I don't know why she seemed to be looking off at something, and I think that was not her. I think she was directed to do that.
It's to make her seem kind of scatterbrained, I think. Yeah,
I guess, but she seems to be like looking at something, like thinking almost. It gives her a thinking face, and that's kind of the point, is that she's not.
You're not
like,
supposed to think.
I would have given her more wide-eyed, sort of unfocused, Marilyn Monroe-esque, big eyes and da 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 da. What she played.
Like literally wide-eyed. Also, and since I was mentioning actors, we haven't mentioned him specifically yet, but Bill Mumy,
the kid,
Anthony. How'd you think he did?
That was fantastic.
Yeah,
he was great. Now, and again, the only issues that I have with him, because he played him as just and some of it just made me easy as a kid. Just played him very, very direct. Yeah. He had bad thoughts, so I killed him. Just very matter of fact. Yes. I loved that so much, and I wish, like I said, I wish they had not made him so. But some of it also, it may have had something to do with aging the character up, and they sort of thought about how that would change things.
Yeah. And once again, the scene with Anthony and his dad, I think, is probably my favorite Bill Mumy scene too. Because it's one of the few scenes in the episode where he doesn't come across as explicitly threatening. There's always we've seen what he's capable of, so there's always that fear. There's always like a touch of, suspense, but he's not being malicious. He's not angry. He seems like he gets along with his dad, and they're having like a nice scene, but there's this cloud over it because we know what he is capable of, so yeah.
Yeah. And especially I don't think wishing somebody, I don't think wishing somebody into the cornfield means that he's killing them. It means that they are dead, because he wishes Dan into the cornfield after he's been made into a jack-in-the-box. And then, but at the beginning he says, be dead, gopher. And then he wishes it into the cornfield.
Yeah, but I guess to me, there was a meaning in the fact that almost every time it's referred to in the story, the phrase is, he thought it into a grave in the cornfield.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting change.
And in the show, it's always, he wished it into the cornfield.
So I'm and the mention of knowing when it was aired, as well as the discussion in the chat of what gets past the censors and what doesn't. I can't help wondering if that was a deliberate choice, just to be ambiguous, to increase that suspense. Like, we know it, but we're not. It's kind of goes along with the show. We know it, we're not going to say it. It adds to that. Or was it a creative decision, or was it But we have graves, it's the graves.
Yeah.
Where are we censoring that?
Like,
So you're like, no,
like,
no, just because there's the real capricious evil.
yeah, I'm sure Rod Serling would agree with you.
So
I wish I could send you to the cornfield.
25580, I don't think that's possible, because given that he wiped out the doctor and took the town off the map when he was like an infant.
Yeah,
And,
apparently
like,
he
not
did that like
cognizant.
instinctively. Yeah.
So there's any sort of threat, and who's to say that it wasn't tried and failed.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, that's one of those things that,
and also you don't know what would happen.
you don't know what would happen.
know.
Yeah, you don't know what would happen. And also, if they do that, there's no story. So just go with it. I mean,
Yeah.
and actually, but I do think it's another difference that something that they add to the Twilight Zone version, that there is a character who explicitly says we should kill him.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's anywhere in the story. That's nowhere in the short story. The fact that Dan comes right out and says somebody needs to kill him so that this can stop. So at least somebody is not, I mean, I'm sure they've all had a moment of weakness where they thought it, even though they know that it's dangerous to think such things. But, it's like, how could that not have occurred to somebody?
Yeah. And that, I think that's also something that, I didn't like the moment with Aunt Amy drawing back, because it's not clear why she does. It's just, she decided not to.
Maybe she was afraid. Yeah. Or
maybe
she,
but that's not shown. We don't see sudden fear on her face. It's just like, because, and part of it is because it is Aunt Amy. I think I would have preferred it if it was his mom.
Because that's right, because she
can be more expressive.
Well, and she brings it up in that scene with Bill in the beginning, where she says, when she's talking about the creature that Anthony made that attacked him, and she says, for a second I was hoping, yes. And then she trails off.
Yes. Yeah. And again, that was where I was like, you're his mom. You were hoping it was like a creature. He didn't, not something. To me, I thought he made something small, like he did with the gopher. And you were hoping it would, what, bite his finger? Whoop they freaking do.
Come on, creature, come on.
Yeah. So but I would have liked to see, and I think that would have set it up later, for have maybe Bill have said that, and her saying, he's a boy, he's just a boy, and we can't think such things, and then have it turn at the end when Dan is begging, and then have her reach for it and have that uncertainty set back in. I think that would have really been strong.
And 255 AD, you're right. There is that moment. There is that mention in the story that people back in the day, people did try to hurt him, and he.
But again, there's no indication that that's like while he's asleep.
Right.
I think they tried to sneak up on him or something.
Yeah.
Which I guess they didn't.
Not a good idea. Not a good idea.
But yeah, I like that he set that up for you to say, because then there's no story, because it's kind of what he thinks.
Because I mean, it's something that it has nothing to do with this, because we both really like this story. But I know you and I, Dana, have talked about this in the past about I am much more willing to just spot a story, the premise, whatever the premise is, even if you can poke holes in it and say, this wouldn't happen because X, Y, and Z, whatever. I'm willing to say, yeah, maybe that's true, but let's just go with it, because if we don't, there's no story.
But see, here's the thing. If you start with a crappy premise, I'm okay with there not being a story. There are other stories that are better than one that starts out with a crappy premise. Thanks.
Yeah.
In fact, let's see. Here's this one. C.C. Rios and the Desert of Souls. Liking it so far. I'm only a little ways in. I'm here. So I'm just a little ways in.
You've just started.
I'm on page 58. This is, it's pretty hefty. I think it's, upper middle grade. So like 6th, 7th grade.
So you prefer the short story, but you did like the episode.
Very much so. I thought
I'm so
I
glad.
thought I've never heard Rod Serling
Ah,
before.
isn't he great? Isn't he great?
He's
He's like that
hilarious.
at the beginning of every episode.
He's got these really strong dimples, and just like it's like he's like, and the way he talks and the way he holds his jaw, it's like he's
Yeah.
trying to screw them in deeper.
Well,
It's
because
so funny.
here's the great thing about Rod Serling is, first of all, in the first season of the show, he just narrates. You just hear his voiceover. He doesn't actually appear on screen, except for the end of the last episode. Like, he appears in person, and he's actually part of the story, sort of.
Mhm.
But then after that, from season 2 through season 5, he's always on camera at the beginning. Not usually at the end, but usually at least at the beginning to introduce it. And you know, he's usually his present, none of the characters ever see him or interact with him, but he's like in the scene, like if the scene takes place in a diner, like the camera will pan over and he's like sitting in a booth in the diner, and
Oh.
he's talking to the camera and introducing the episode, and usually smoking a cigarette. And but the thing about Rod Serling is he was a writer before Twilight Zone. I don't know if he had ever been on camera as anything other than himself, like doing interviews and stuff. Like, he wasn't an actor. So he has a little bit of like an unnatural kind of stiff camera presence because he's not a trained performer. Like, he's a writer, and he's introducing the show because they decided that the show should have a narrator at the beginning and the end to sort of bring things together. And they figured, well, Rod, why don't you do it? It's your show. And he was like, okay. And he did it. And it's now, it's one of the definitive things. It's one of the things that sets the Twilight Zone apart from other similar shows that were around at the time, is that Rod Serling, the guy who created the show and wrote most of the episodes, is actually on camera introducing the show to you. Like, that's pretty cool.
But also, I think I'm guessing, since he didn't do it this time, I think it works to have him as this sort of unnatural presence in the scene, because like that's kind of the way the Twilight Zone stories feel, and so it adds to and enhances that mood. I'm guessing, since I haven't seen any of those.
You are. I agree with you.
Wait.
Right. I mean,
what?
Oh, you're right, Dana. You're right, Dana. It is something that it does. It gives it, because it reminds you of the artificiality of it. It reminds you that what you're about to see is a play, but it also makes it surreal. Because it is the Twilight Zone, and there is this guy looking right at you, talking to you there watching TV, and nobody else sees him. Nobody else looks at the camera. You know what I mean? Like, it's, and it really adds to the feeling of the show. Really effective
so
way.
255 AD, talking about the kid looks so 50s and 60s. I think they did a really good job of making him seem otherwise just like a normal kid, like the mention of the blue eyes, and in the story it's always his purple gaze. Like, he has this unnatural look. So
purple gaze all in my brain.
Oh, that's
lately
okay.
Things don't seem the same.
So yeah.
Oh, wow, that really works really well. If you just change it to purple gaze and you assume that it's about Anthony acting funny, and I don't know why. Like, it really works. Excuse me while I kiss the sky. Da, 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 da. That's, wow. You change one word and that's totally about It's a Good Life.
There you go.
Yeah.
So anything else?
So what you would be open to watching more Twilight Zone in the future?
I would be open to watching more Twilight Zone in the future. We're going to switch to that instead of DS9.
I was just thinking just the two. I was thinking just the two of us. If we want to hang out sometime without, making a show of it, we can just hang out and, watch a Twilight Zone episode.
I would be open to that.
I'm so glad, because it is one of my favorite shows ever.
Really? I didn't know that.
You can't tell. You can hardly even tell.
You've never mentioned it before, ever.
But I mean, I know I hand out praise for things I like very easily. I know it's probably about LSD, 255 AD. How many Hendrix songs were not about LSD? But no, but like I know I throw out praise to things I like very easily. So I say like, such and such is my favorite such and such a lot. Um, Twilight Zone is probably top 3 TV shows ever for me.
Along with Star Trek and Perfect Strangers or MacGyver.
No, Twilight Zone. I would put Twilight Zone ahead of any single Star Trek show.
I think Star Trek.
Yeah. I mean, Star Trek as a whole, like as a whole cohesive franchise with all the shows and stuff, then yeah, I would have to put it like above Twilight Zone. But just Twilight Zone is better than any single Star Trek show.
So you said top 3. I'm wondering what the other 2 are.
Oh, All in the Family.
Okay.
And at one time, I would have said The Simpsons. I don't know if The Simpsons has tarnished its legacy by going on for too long, but like the Simpsons for like
the early Simpsons
for like the first, well, yeah. And when I say the early Simpsons, like the first 8 or 9
years,
yeah, like when the point where if the Simpsons was like a normal show, it would have ended. If you get to be most shows, if you get to like 7 years, you're like, oh, this has been a great run, everybody. This is the last year, right?
Congratulations.
Nope. Yeah.
Simpsons is like, it's having its midlife crisis. It's been having a midlife crisis for a while.
Yeah.
But buddy, I want to go back to what you said about it. He's described as a goblin. He's described as a goblin. But it literally never occurred to me that was based on what he looked like.
No.
He's described as a goblin because you don't know, because he's going to create problems based on who he inherently is. Like goblins, you can't fault a goblin for being a goblin. That's just, this is pre D&D, and it's still associated with chaotic evil. Let's be honest.
Well,
it's goblins create problems. That's what they do, and they're not big chaotic problems like world-ending problems. They're not dragons. They're goblins, but like, yeah.
Oh, and that what Homebody is referencing there from the story, when the doctor saw him and like immediately like tried to kill him. What I like about that, I think that ties into the image at the end of, the unimaginable thing that he does to Dan Hollis, which is that it's one of the things that the story does that makes the story great, which is that it suggests things. And then knowing that your imagination will take it from there. So it doesn't say that it doesn't say what the doctor sees or what it is about Anthony when he's born that causes that reaction from the doctor.
Yes, exactly.
It's something.
Because here's the thing, as a doctor, if a child is born, as a doctor, if a child is born and it looks deformed,
right?
Like your instinct is not going to be, oh, let's kill it. It's going to be,
let's kill it right away.
This. It's going to be this poor baby. What is wrong with it? Yeah, the doctor's reaction suggests something.
Exactly.
But it doesn't indicate what is wrong. Again, I'm going back to the idea, not appearance, but innate wrongness. Something is wrong here. There is something unnatural, something wrong, something that should not exist. And that's what they're going for.
And because it is undescribed in the story,
it just gives you that sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really like, and you know what? I will say this. I agree with you. I think the short story is better.
Then one of the best episodes of one of your favorite TV shows.
I don't think that it diminishes the episode.
Right.
For me, because I still really love the episode, and there are things the episode does that the short story doesn't that I do like, and that I even think are better. But overall, I do think I prefer the short story. The short story is just, it's perfect. It's a perfect little sci-fi horror story. Like it's a perfect object, And the TV episode is, like I've said, it's one of my, it's not my favorite Twilight Zone. It's one of my favorite Twilight Zones, and it's one of the most celebrated Twilight Zones. I don't know if I would say it's quite perfect, but it's
it's close. It's up there.
It's
255 AD, sort of. Wanted you. It's not that he wanted that particular song. It's like that's what they had. And it was a song that he liked. It's not necessarily that it was his favorite thing. It was something that they didn't know that they had. So they found something. It would be like if they'd found like another crate of whiskey. Like that dude would have been over the moon. He's like, we thought we only had 5 bottles. And there's a whole crate of Lagavulin over here. Yes. And then his wife's like, man, I don't like the smoky stuff. You know, couldn't it have been Drambuie?
Right.
Yeah. So, and then, but yeah, it's you know, their choices are interesting. So it's fun. And then yeah, Kane, I absolutely agree. I think it's that juxtaposition of things that, and I mean that's the Twilight Zone, things that seem normal and wholesome, but that they're just wrenched and there's a wrongness and things don't fit right. Oh, love it.
Yeah. And also, there was I don't know if you know this, Dan, or not. I think I've probably, you either know it just because it's a thing in the culture or I've mentioned it to you, but there have been a couple of, I guess you'd call them revivals of the Twilight Zone over the years. There was one in the 80s that lasted 3 or 4 seasons, I think. And then there was another one in the early 2000s. And then there was one just a couple years ago on Paramount Plus, that they only did, I guess they're not going to do anymore, but they did 2 seasons. But in the one from the early 2000s, which I think ironically is the least remembered one, they actually did a sequel to this episode. And Bill Mumy came back and played Anthony as a grown-up.
Oh.
And still living in the same, like they're still all in Peaksville. You know, I think John Larch was dead by that point. So they had that, you know, the father was killed off, but Cloris Leachman was still alive and she played his mother. And Anthony had a daughter who had his powers. So Anthony was still himself, you know, but, you know, I think he was probably in his 40s at that point. And he had a little girl who was roughly the age that he is in the original episode. And yeah, it's still a good life, Jeff. Yeah, that's what it's called. It's still a good life. And it's interesting. Like, it's not, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's good, and it certainly doesn't compare to the original, but it's interesting. And it's, yeah.
It gives you something to think about and something to talk about. And that's not bad.
Yeah. And yes, and I think they did it. Yes, they did it in the as a segment in the movie too, with different people. Yeah, but
right,
the less said about the Twilight Zone movie, the better.
Yeah, 255 AD. Yeah, I think so. But I think part of the you know, the rationale for it being like that was it wasn't necessarily popular music. It was just this is what we got. Again, something new.
And it was popular music.
Yes, it was
among adults, you know, like
yes,
I mean, yeah, because like 255 AD says in his question, like I mean, people in their 30s and 40s in the 1950s were not listening to rock and roll. Yeah, right. They were listening to Perry. They were listening to Perry Como and that kind of stuff, you know. So it was popular back then, just not among the demographic.
They would have found Elvis and been disappointed.
Yeah. Oh, it's Elvis. Oh shit. Is it one of his gospel ones? No. Oh God.
Oh. The Beatles. They spelled it wrong.
Well, not in the 60s. It could have been the Beatles. When the short story was published, there were no Beatles. But
but I'm saying, when they made this, the Beatles were around. But even then, adults in their 30s and 40s, not the primary audience.
That's true. And honestly, in the United States, most teenagers probably weren't aware of the Beatles yet because the Beatles didn't do Ed Sullivan until 64.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so yeah. Well, I'm glad we watched it, and I'm glad you liked it. And I'm glad I read the short story because it's fantastic. Yay! So
it's a good episode.
It's hey.
It really is though. It's a good story. It's a good episode, and we've had a good conversation because of it.
We sure have.
Thank you, Jerome Bixby.
Yes, thank you, Jerome Bixby, very much for an awesome story. Thank you, Rod Serling.
Good choice, Rod Serling.
For a good ad. Oh, and you know, I think we talked about this morning when we were talking about it too. Like, it's almost as if Jerome Bixby wrote it so that it could become a Twilight Zone. Now, that's not possible because the Twilight Zone didn't exist, and Rod Serling's career as a writer was like literally just starting when this story was
published.
published. Like Serling had just become like a full-time TV writer in the early 50s. So they're like, it's not possible. But it feels like
Mhm.
like I think like you said something about this earlier. Like maybe this was one of the stories that Rod Serling read or
Gave
was
him the
familiar
idea,
with,
and it was like,
and he
I could
thought,
do this
oh
thing.
yeah, like, if I do this show, I want to do this, could be an episode,
Yeah.
because this is the perfect thing. It's almost the most surprising thing is that it took him till season 3 to do it. Because it's like it was a very well-known story, and it's such a perfect Twilight Zone,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's season 3 when they finally do it. So, but yeah,
He might have needed to make, because he has a really good cast, and he might
yes,
have wanted to
cast is
wait
perfect.
until he might have liked it enough that he wanted to wait until he could do it the way he wanted to.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and yeah, Homebody, you're right. Jerome Bixby did write some Star Trek episodes. He sure did.
Okay, it's time to wrap up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. So we will be back on Wednesday to watch our last regular episode of Hilda.
Okay.
And then we still have a couple of Hildas left because we're going to do the movie in 2 parts after that. But our last regular episode of Hilda.
Dun dun dun.
And yeah. And we don't have another read away scheduled at this time. If we come up with another book to read, we'll get back into it. But at the moment, this will be the last read away for a while.
If you have suggestions, put them in the comments. We'll talk about it. It'll probably be a little while, to be honest, because
yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have it's nice to have a Friday where there's no live stream. But yeah, so we'll see you.
Although I mean, what are you going to do instead?
Nothing.
Which is also good, in fairness.
It's
good to do nothing. It's swell.
It's real fine. Don't forget also on Sunday is my patrons and members hangout.
Wait, already?
No, we don't. The last Sunday of the month.
Holy
Today's
smokes.
The 26th. This is the last Sunday of the month coming up.
Gee whiz, golly gosh.
So that'll be on Sunday at noon Eastern, and then we'll be back on Wednesday for Trek Reluctantly to watch Hilda, and
then you'll be back on Friday again.
And then I'll be back on Friday for Ask Away. So there we go.
There's your week.
There's my week. So yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. I really enjoyed this.
Yes, me too. I'm so glad you did. Oh, don't forget charitylinks.page in the description.
Help people. Yeah. Be a nice human.
Be a nice human. Like Anthony tries to be in the story, but
in the story anyway.
He just can't
quite get so there. In the show.
Less so in the show, but at least we share a love of dinosaurs. There's that.
Mm-hmm. Cursor sudden yet inevitable betrayal.
Why'd you have to bring Firefly into it? We had a great Twilight Zone stream, and then she started talking about Firefly. Which is fine. Firefly was fine.
Swell.
It's
swell.
Firefly sure is swell.
It's a real good show.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. We'll see you.
Bye.